Once again, it is my great privilege, pleasure, and honor to be with all of you for our Facebook Live session. And I want to thank all of you for taking your time out and joining our Facebook Live session this evening. Once again, I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude and support, gratitude and thanks to all of you for all the support that you have extended for all of our online efforts and for the book Life's Amazing Secrets. I wish to thank you all very much for your ongoing support. We are very happy to have Vinod and Bontu, Rita, Jackson. Thank you very much for joining us. Nikhil, thank you for being with us. Manoj, Jyoti, BS, Nagaratna, Dashrath Singh, Raman. Thank you so much for sparing your valuable time for joining us this evening for our Facebook Live session. One of the most transformative aspects of wisdom that I have learned from the ancient epics of India, from my teachers, and from my personal experience is we can truly change the quality of our life and experience tremendous transformation in our lives if we can simply learn the art of shifting our attention, shifting our focus from what we cannot control to what we can control. Ladies and gentlemen, often our mind gets very much consumed by those things that we cannot change, by those factors, by those situations, by those elements that are out of our control. What Stephen Covey calls the circle of concern. When we get so consumed by the circle of concern, by things that are beyond our control, things that are completely beyond our reach, we only get negative. Imagine shifting our focus from the circle of concern, things beyond our control, to the circle of influence, things which are within our control, things that we can change, things that we can do, things that we can reach. That internal shift, that shift in our lives is extremely transformative, because in the circle of influence, things that we can change, things that are in our control, there's growth, there's positivity, there's opportunity, there's satisfaction, there's joy. And which is why I think it's such a great need for us to learn the art of making that internal shift from what we cannot control to what we can control, from the circle of concern to the circle of influence. This evening I thought I would share with you 4 different areas in a way that we can make this shift in these respective particular areas. One of the things that I've always taught and always speak about, rave about rather, that we can bring the best or the worst out of people by the way we treat them, by the way we deal with them. If we can deal with them nicely, we may bring out their nice side. If we deal with them not so nicely, we may bring out the not so nice side from them. But that's true often, but there are exceptions to that as well. Even if we deal with people properly, even if we deal with people rightly, even if we deal with people with sensitivity, with kindness, with respect, some people are just who they are. I'm sure as I'm speaking, there's at least one face in your mind of that person with whom you've tried your level best, but that guy just remains exactly the same. They do what they do, they say what they say, and that's definitely not in our favor, that's definitely not to our liking, that's definitely not something that we're comfortable with. When we have done our best, still people don't reciprocate in the right way, that's something completely beyond our control. We should try our level best to change what we can in those people, but we know that beyond a limit they are not going to change, which means they fall in the circle of concern. They fall in the circle of concern, and we are not going to be able to change anything about them. And I'm saying this after having tried. Now, I probably have told you this story earlier, but it's my favorite, so I'm telling you. One guy was walking on the street, middle-aged man. He had this reddish hair, and a young chap walking by, he saw this man with this reddish hair and asked him, "Is this hair from your mother's side or is it from your father's side?" Well, that's too insulting, isn't it? Bringing your mom and dad in it. The guy, in a very unflustered way, he said, "Well, it's neither from my mother's side nor from my father's side. Actually, this reddish hair is from peroxide." Now, he knew that you can't change. If people are going to talk to you in a hurtful way, can you control them? So many people have spoken to me in so many hurtful ways. So many people write so many comments on all our videos, on our live sessions, which are extremely hurtful. Can I control your comments? Can you control the comments of your colleagues? Can you control the comments that your friends, your family members make straight on your face or on your Facebook posts or on your Insta posts? Can you control people's comments? Can you control people's opinion? Ladies and gentlemen, if there are people who can change by the way we deal with them, they can. But if there are people who don't, they just are in the circle of concern. And most online comments are just circle of concern, right? Which is why we truly need to learn to shift our attention from the circle of concern to the circle of influence. Again, I must make this point after having tried what we can do to sort the situation out, to sort that person out. If we can change them, great. But if we can't, well, they just move into the circle of concern, which is unchangeable. And if the need be, in certain extreme case situations, you may even need legal action, in fact. Like somebody says something which is extremely abusive and puts it all over the social media, goes to print media, goes to television, and there's no element of truth to it, damaging your reputation, damaging your name, damaging your image, your profession is at stake, then you may need legal action as well. That change is needed. That's the circle of influence. But in general case scenarios, when things are just beyond our control in terms of changing people, what can you do? They're going to say what they say, and they're going to do what they do. We need to make that internal shift. I always tell the story of Abraham Lincoln. When Abraham Lincoln was elected to be the President of the United States of America, he came to the White House for the first time to give his first speech, and one of the members of the Senate who was sitting there raised his hand, got up, and he said to Abraham Lincoln, "Oh, you're a son of a shoemaker, I know. In fact, your dad, your father, would make shoes for me and everybody in my family." That's pretty insulting in one sense, to say that to the President of the United States of America. Now, Abraham Lincoln understood in his mind that this gentleman is in the circle of concern. You cannot stop people from saying what they say. You cannot stop people by thinking what they think about you. You cannot stop people from doing what they do against you. How the hell can we stop people from saying, doing, or thinking what they do for us, what they think about us, and what they say about us? We cannot control. And again, if it is changeable, you change it. If there's legal action, you do it. But in most cases, that's not going to be the case. They're just friends. They're just family members. They're just office colleagues. You're not going to take legal action against them. What are you going to do? Which is why that internal shift is needed. The reply that Abraham Lincoln gave to the senator was amazing. Abraham Lincoln said, "Sir, thank you very much for reminding me that I'm the son of a shoemaker, a cobbler. And my father, his passion was to make shoes of the topmost, best quality. He poured his heart and his soul into making every pair of shoes with such incredible precision and perfection that nobody ever had a complaint about the pair of shoes he made. And if you, sir, were wearing the shoes that he made, and if there be any complaint that you have, any fault that you may have in the shoe that my father made, my father also taught me the art of making shoes. And therefore, if there be a complaint, give it back to me. I'll sort it out. I'll fix them and return them to you. I loved Abraham Lincoln's response. I think that's the response that all of us need to adopt, to move from the circle of concern to the circle of influence. Again, an asterisk there. It's when things are going on a daily basis and people are being abusive on a daily basis, we have to try to see what we can do in the circle of influence. Once again, if what people are doing, saying or thinking is harming our public reputation, harming our professional position, we will need to look at what we can do in the circle of influence. But for most other situations, Abraham Lincoln's response is amazing because it just takes out the wind out of the sails. हिंदी में कहता हूँ, गुब्बारे फुग्गे के अंदर की हवा निकल जाती है. It just deflates the balloon. Our response just deflates the balloon of the guy who's trying to say, do or think something against us. Ladies and gentlemen, when I talk about shifting that attention from what is not in your control to what is in your control, from the circle of concern to the circle of influence, what I mean is, do not allow others to ruin your peace. Do not allow what they say to ruin your joy. And they are there simply to watch you get angry, simply to watch you get frustrated, simply to watch you get stressed about the entire situation, simply to watch you get worked up with the situation, and they enjoy it. Sadists as they are, they enjoy this kind of pleasure, seeing you being so disturbed. Do not allow these guys to disturb your calm, your peace, your joy, your state of mind by moving into the circle of influence. They are going to talk what they talk. Let your response be right. What are you going to talk? What are you going to say? And in certain cases, the response may be legal. In certain cases, the response may be more serious and grave. But in most cases, our response should be to just deflate the balloon. फुग्गे की अंदर की हवा निकाल दो. If they are going to just, if you're going to get affected, if you're going to get flustered, if you're going to get angry about it, they've succeeded. They are victorious. But if you decide to deflate the balloon by giving a response of dignity, what they talk, let them talk. How you talk will define you. Greatness is not defined by what people talk to you. That's out of your control. Greatness is defined by how you talk to people, how you respond back, and that's what defines us. So the first area of moving from the circle of concern to the circle of influence is when people talk to us in a certain way, or when people deal with us in a certain way. Frosty, thank you very much from West Bengal joining us. Katie, thank you very much. Oh yes, indeed, we're talking about dealing with a narcissist. Annie, thank you so much for your compliment. Sen, we're very, very happy that you are here with us. You've joined us. Angel, very happy that you've joined us as well this evening. Shiv Kumar, Sheetal, Armugan, Chetan, Munira, Akshay, very, very glad that you have taken the time out to join our Facebook Live session this evening. Sen and Shruti, Shubhajit, welcome you to our Facebook session as well. Joseph, thank you for joining us from wherever you are for our Facebook Live session. Now, my second aspect of moving from the circle of concern to the circle of influence is this. I've always spoken about the example of a farmer. A farmer may have a great piece of land, very fertile. The unfortunate thing for him is there's no river or no natural source of water there. The farmer has the great piece of land with no body of water around. The soil is fertile. It's a great piece of land. He has excellent quality of seeds to sow them and harvest a bountiful crop. And he even puts his entire energy and effort in tilling the land, tilling the soil, sowing the seeds very carefully and with precision. After he's put all of his effort, there's a factor which is in the circle of concern, which is beyond his control or her control, which is something that he or she cannot change the monsoons, the rains. Here in India, we know how farmers are so dependent on the monsoons and the rains, unless they have a body of water around them. And even if they decide to do rainwater harvesting to grow the crops, the rainwater harvesting of water gets over at a certain point of time. If there's no good monsoons in a year or two, once again the farmer is in the same situation. Which is why we have to understand that there's a circle of concern, the rains for the farmer, and the farmer cannot change it. There's a circle of influence, choice of the land, choice of the proper kind of equipment, hard work, choice of the right kind of seeds. And if the farmer puts in that kind of effort, he has done or she has done their bit. And now, beyond that, the result is dependent on factors that are beyond their control. One guy once came up to me, like probably about 21 or 22 years old. The gentleman came up to me and he was so much wanting to build a body, like wanted to be a, like a bodybuilder. A skinny fellow, out of the mesomorph, the endomorph, and the ectomorph. I get confused with these terms, but one of those where it's not easy to make a body. He had given his best, joined the best gym, had the best trainer, had excellent nutritionist who was guiding him, was very particular about his nutrition, about his workouts, a regular gym goer. And guess what? Despite excellent rest, everything in place, all of his efforts were perfectly in place. Yet, just wasn't making the body that he wanted to. You know why? Because there's factors that are beyond his control. His genetic wiring is beyond his control. Out of the 3 types of body frames, he's one of those body types. That body type is just beyond his control. In his circle of influence was his nutrition, which he was doing right. In his circle of influence was his workout, which he was doing right. Circle of influence was the right kind of gym and the right kind of trainer. He had the perfect guy there, the perfect nutritionist. He was taking enough rest. He was putting everything in place. But then there was a circle of concern, which is the genetic wiring, which he just could not change. So wasn't there a great need? After having put the effort, the result wasn't in his control because there was factors beyond his control. He saw an endocrinologist, and the endocrinologist added a further thing that there were some hormonal issues which he had. They tried to fix it, but still it couldn't get fixed. And when he came to me, I told him, look, let the goal of your exercise and workout not so much be the looks of your body, let it be fitness. And with the kind of body type you have, with the kind of hormonal imbalance you have, and everything that you are doing in the circle of influence, you're certainly going to be fit. So yes, even in whether it's the example of the farmer, whether it's the example of the guy who wants to make a body, or whether it's the example of a student who studies really, really hard to crack his exams or her exams and get an excellent academic score from the exams. Tried his best or her best, studied really hard, put in all effort that's required. Imagine the question paper has a question that's something there which he doesn't know or she doesn't know. Imagine he or she knows it but forgets it at that moment. Circle of concern. A question that he or she cannot answer comes to him or her. Circle of concern. A question that he or she knows but at that moment forgets that answer. Circle of concern. Circle of influence. Studied hard, gave the best, came to write the exam. Circle of influence. Imagine one of you professionals out there wanting to get a promotion at your workplace. Imagine one of you businessmen out there wanting to strike a business deal. You put in all of your effort. You wrote all the reports at office, right? You did all of your work with great precision and commitment. But there are factors beyond your control. There are other guys who are wanting that promotion as well, and you don't get it. Circle of concern. Things that you have no control over, ladies and gentlemen. Which is why I love to tell the story that His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the founder of ISKCON, told the story and wrote the story in one of his commentaries on one of the verses of the Bhagavad Gita. A wonderful story. He said there was once a little tiny little sparrow on a tree close to the ocean, and the sparrow had laid eggs. And suddenly the sparrow one day came back flying into the nest and saw that all the eggs were missing. The sparrow started looking for the eggs. Hither, the eggs weren't lying on the ground. Nobody was around. Where did the eggs go? And suddenly the sparrow realized that the gods of the ocean, Varuna, had stolen her eggs, had taken the eggs away. The waves of the ocean had come and taken the eggs away during the high tide. The sparrow was determined to do what was in the circle of influence, the circle of concern, the eggs being taken away. She had no control over that situation. They were gone. All she could do was be in the circle of influence and see what could be done to get the eggs back. Get the eggs back? They were taken away by the ocean. An ocean, when it seems like it's a shoreless ocean, seems like it's like a bottomless ocean, where do you go and get the eggs? Varuna, the god of oceans, had taken it away. What do you do? The sparrow, with great grit and determination, went and started emptying the ocean with its drop by drop, with its tiny little beak, started pulling out a drop of water, and drop by drop, the sparrow started pulling out a drop of water, spitting it out, pulling out a drop of water, spitting it out, with an ambition to empty the ocean and get the eggs back. Empty the ocean? Now, that seems absurd, isn't it? Weird, isn't it? Doesn't it sound like sometimes our story, that something that we wanted is not in our control now, been taken away by us, the opportunity is gone, and we just putting our effort endlessly to get there. And it seems like a Herculean task of getting to Mount Everest. Srila Prabhupada, he continues the story by saying, this little sparrow was trying to empty the ocean, drop by drop, an impossible task. The impossible can become possible when our efforts, when our genuine sincerity, when our grit and our determination attracts the grace of higher powers. Garuda, the mighty eagle bird, the carrier of Lord Vishnu, happened to see this tiny little sparrow trying to empty the ocean drop by drop. And Garuda felt such empathy. This sparrow is amazing, has such determination. He came to the sparrow and asked the sparrow, what's happening? What are you doing? The sparrow said, I'm just trying to empty the ocean. But Garuda said, why? The sparrow said, well, my eggs were taken away by Varuna, the ocean god. I want my eggs back. I'm a mother. Garuda said, don't you worry. I'll sort this out for you. Immediately Garuda was way more mightier and powerful, threatened the ocean god Varuna that you give the eggs of the sparrow back, you return them back, lest I dry you up. The sparrow cannot, but Garuda with its mighty powers certainly can. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, we often feel helpless in our situations to dry up the ocean that has consumed our desires, that has devoured our ambitions, that has taken away our dreams in whatever area we want to progress. And we keep trying harder and harder, and we must. That's the circle of concern. The circle of influence. Like the sparrow, she kept being in the circle of influence rather than crying in the circle of concern that what can I do? It's beyond my control. Let me just sit here. Life is bad. Life is frustrating. People are bad. The ocean god is bad. Varun is bad. Just cursing and swearing doesn't change the situation in the circle of concern. When one attempts to live by that principle of doing what we can, we attract grace. We attract higher powers. Which is why one of my favorite quotes that I've always told all of you is, when you run alone, that's called a race. When God runs with you, that's called grace. To your race of emptying the ocean, add the G. And when that G is added to your race becomes grace. So that's my second principle of shifting from the circle of concern to the circle of influence in your work, in your attempts to be academically successful, spiritually successful, emotionally successful, professionally successful. The effort's in your hand. The result, after you've given your best, is not, because there's factors beyond your control. Samir, thank you very much for joining us. Tashi Huang, very, very glad that you're with us this evening. Sahil, Shailja, Gajendra, Anku, Chetan, Sandeep, thank you so much for being with us. Zara, very, very glad. Thank you for that thing. We've commented grace. Grace is such an important thing, isn't it? Abhi, thank you, Shelly, for all the way from Amritsar joining us. राजीव जी जरूर थोड़ा हिंदी में भी जरूर बोलेंगे. महालक्ष्मी from Malaysia, all the way from Malaysia. Panna, Rupa, Shri Shrimal ji, thank you so much. Drew, I'm so happy that all of you have joined this evening. Shweta, thank you for joining us. Manish, thank you very much for joining us again. The third aspect of moving from the circle of concern to the circle of influence that I want to share with you this evening is this. I have always believed that there's nothing about my belief or your belief. We all know it as a established fact that we all have 24 hours in a day, don't we? We have limited time, 24 hours every single day, and those 24 hours are available to all of us at all times every single day. Now, the funny part of it is the 24 hours are the circle of concern. We can't change it. If you want extra time, you can't get it. You want extra time in this world to live more, you can't get it. Time is an element in the circle of concern. You can't get more, you can't get less, you can't change it. But what's the circle of influence? In that time, how do you live your life with the right priorities? Ladies and gentlemen, I have always believed in one thing. I read this quote. It said, either you run the day or the day runs you. The choice is yours. When you run the day, you're in the circle of influence. When the day runs you, you are in the circle of concern, just being run by the day with no control, being controlled by time. Now, which is why circle of influence is about priorities. In that entire day, what are your priorities? Are you putting your priorities right? Are you making your priorities right? You have no control over those 24 hours, but you have complete control over assigning the right kind of priority to the areas that are the most important in your life. And what should our priorities be? What should our priority be? I do not think that there's a greater priority that any individual should have than working on oneself. The greatest priority of our lives is working on ourselves, because if we work on ourselves, we're going to be able to work on everybody else. We'll be able to serve others, our family, the society. We will be able to contribute something to the nation, to the world, to the society. We will be able to make our divine spiritual connection with God, our spirituality, if we are in place. Mentally unstable, emotionally disturbed people cannot even practice spirituality stably. Even to be able to meditate, chant, pray, there's a great need for a certain amount of emotional stability and mental stability. Yes, spirituality helps us with our mind, but even to practice spirituality, we need a certain state of mind. Ladies and gentlemen, I truly feel the greatest priority is yourself. And if you can work on yourself and I can work on myself, we will be able to do so much for the world. We will be able to do so much for our spiritual progress. We will be able to contribute so much in whatever we do. Isn't it said, this gentleman once said, I wanted to change the world, but then I realized that it's too difficult and I couldn't do it. So then I thought, let me at least change my nation. I failed. I thought, let me at least change my town. It was too hard. Got frustrated. I thought, let me at least change my family. Hard. Finally, now I realized the only thing or the only person I can change is myself. Work on yourself. The greatest project is not in your company at your workplace. The greatest project is not to be a social media giant with 5,000 friends. The greatest project is not building biceps, triceps, pecs, abs. The greatest project is not being size 0. The greatest project is working on yourself. The greatest project, the greatest priority is working on yourself. If I can change myself, there's probably a possibility by my transformed consciousness, by my transformed life, my family can change. If my family can change, probably other such families, together my town can change. Maybe the nation can change. Maybe the world can change. Isn't it for that reason that Mahatma Gandhi said, be the change that you want to see in the world? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, when I talk about moving from the circle of concern to the circle of influence, the 24 hours, the 30 days of the month, 31 days of the month, the years of your life, not in your control. What is in your control is how are you setting your priorities right? How are you working on yourself completely in your control? And that's where growth lies. That's where satisfaction and joy lies. And that's how we can actually make a powerful impact on all the people around you. Priyanka, thank you very much for your compliment on Life's Amazing Secrets. I request all of you to this Diwali try and see if we can give gifts to people. Life's Amazing Secret. Like last time I told you, it's not about the numbers. It's the larger the number of heads we reach, the larger the number of hearts we touch. Life's Amazing Secrets is about transforming lives. So let's this Diwali gift out Life's Amazing Secrets to many, many more, and let the book reach thousands and millions of people, not because it's my book, not because it's my wisdom, not because it's my knowledge, it's all that I've received from others, but sharing it with the world would mean a better life for people, a transformed life. Dhruva, thank you very much. Patris, thank you so much for joining, and thank you. I'm grateful if this helps you. Amy, thank you so much. Manzoor, I'm so happy that you are with us. Meeta, Priyanka, Samvit, Shashi, I am so glad that you've joined. Ashwini, thank you so much for joining us. Devarshi, thank you so much once again. Samir, I'm really grateful that you are here with us. Mahesh, thank you for joining us. My last point for this evening is the last point about the last area of moving from the circle of concern to the circle of influence. Of course, there's many more areas we could talk about. I just chose this 4 in the limited time that we have. But thank you all so much for logging in and just staying there. I just feel so encouraged that so many of you come up and spend your valuable time for this Facebook Live sessions. I really want to do more of this and be with all of you. It's so nice to just be with you personally, reading all of your comments and being with you. हाँ, हिंदी में आने वाला है जी, नवंबर एंड में रजनी जी हिंदी में भी आएगा बुक. Ravi, thank you. Marilyn, thank you so much for being with us again. Bharti, thank you. Andrew, very happy that you're with us. My last point for this evening is the last area of moving from the circle of concern to the circle of influence. I'm going to share a little radical, not a real radical, but a little off the beat thought is happiness is the circle of concern, no control. Satisfaction is the circle of influence. Let me explain, because happiness and satisfaction are such interchangeably used words. You know, we all want happiness, we want satisfaction, we all want fulfillment, we all want contentment. These are the words which are kind of so interchangeably used, right? Very often we don't know the subtle differences, the subtle nuances of each of these terms that we often quote in our discussions, in our talks, in our reports and our writing. So like I said, when we talk about happiness, it's a thing in the circle of concern. You know why? Because happiness is not in our control. Satisfaction is a principle in the circle of influence because satisfaction is completely in our control. I'm sure some of you are like wondering, what is it all about, happiness and satisfaction? Here's what I mean. When I say happiness is not in our control, it's because happiness is dependent on others. Other people or our situations outside of us have to be right to make us feel happy. I'll give you an example. I stand first in the exam. If I'm a student, I'm elated. I worked hard, I gave my best, I stood first. I'm elated. I'm besides myself in joy. And imagine I don't stand first after all the hard work. I'm depressed. So happiness is so much dependent on my marks. I worked hard, I'm expecting the marks, they don't come, I'm miserable. If they do come, I'm happy. If they don't come, I'm miserable. So happiness is so marks dependent for a student if he or she is looking for just the marks. Contrast that with a student who is not studying to get the marks. Contrast that with a student who is studying because his or her passion is to study. His or her passion is to get absorbed in understanding the subject thoroughly well and enjoying the subject. Marks will come as a consequence. But the goal is not to get good marks. That person is going to be satisfied whether good marks come or whether good marks don't come, because that inner satisfaction wasn't dependent on whether I stood first or I stood last. It was dependent on how well I studied, how much absorbed was I in my studying, how my understanding deepened by my study. If that's the focus, you're satisfied. If that's not the focus, you're happy and miserable. So which is why satisfaction is in the circle of influence in your control. Imagine if you are looking for endorsement, validation, respect from someone, circle of concern. They may give you today, they may not give it to you tomorrow. Today they give you, you feel they give you respect, they give you love, you feel elated. Tomorrow the same guys insult you, the same guys take the crown of your head and throw it out, right? And now when you see that happen, you're frustrated. And we all go through this as human beings. Those emotions are there at that moment. But we have to learn to move into the circle of influence. Imagine if we didn't want respect from them, we were looking for our own self-respect and we weren't dependent for their validation, we would feel satisfied regardless of whether they respect us or not. And which is why when we move into the circle of influence, ladies and gentlemen, certainly we are satisfied. My last example for this evening is at your workplace. When you are looking at your workplace, you know for sure when you don't get that promotion, when you don't get that rating that you were looking for, so much frustration, so much anger, worked up with the situation, circle of concern. That promotion, you can work hard, but the final thing is not in your hands. If your work is based simply on the promotion or the hike in your salary, I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm just saying if your entire experience of your work is based on that, you may get it and you'll feel elated. You don't get it, you're going to be completely frustrated. Imagine if you instead work to express yourself, to truly be yourself, follow your passion and your calling, whether the result comes or not. Not that you're not after the result, not that you're not trying for the result, not that you're not working for it, but you will feel satisfied whether it comes or it does not come. Again, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying we shouldn't work for those results. I'm just saying don't work to impress, work to express. Don't work for an applause, work for a cause. When you do that, you will find yourself extremely satisfied, which is the circle of influence. And therefore, to summarize our entire discussion today, we began by saying that the most transformative aspect of wisdom is to move from the circle of concern to the circle of influence. We discussed 4 different areas of that. We began with the very first area of how people deal with us. They're going to talk what they talk, they're going to think what they think, they're going to do what they do, and we should do whatever best we can to sort it out. If it's serious, we take legal action, whatever is necessary we do, but at the same time, we should know in our generic dealings, we have to deflate the balloon, take the wind out of the sails by not reacting the way they want us to react and enjoy the sadistic pleasure of seeing us frustrated. Don't give them that joy, and don't disturb and ruin your inner peace, calm and joy. The second aspect of moving from the circle of concern to the circle of influence we heard was our efforts are in our hands. The results are not, because there's going to be many factors which are completely beyond our control, whether it's the farmer's example with the rains beyond our control, whether the guy's example who wanted to build a body, which is whether hormonal imbalance or being a certain genetic wiring isn't beyond his or her control, whether it's a student writing the exam and forgetting an answer at that moment, or getting a question which he or she did not really anticipate, beyond our control. What's in our control is to be the sparrow, give our best with grit, with determination, with complete solidarity in our efforts. We will attract higher powers and grace, and that grace can make the impossible into possible. And of course, the third area that we discussed was time is a circle of concern, 24 hours, certain number of years of our life, we can't change it. What we can change is our priorities, and the greatest priority is working on ourselves, because if we work on ourselves, we can truly do something tangible for others as well. And last but not the least, when we talk about moving from the circle of concern to the circle of influence, we talk about moving from happiness to satisfaction. Happiness is circle of concern because it's not in our control. Situations and people have to make us happy. Satisfaction is completely in our control because it's a circle of influence. It's something that we can get by expressing ourselves, getting our own self-respect in place, and truly connecting to ourselves. I'm really grateful to all of you for joining us for this Facebook Live session. Life's Amazing Secrets. Do give our books as gifts on Diwali to as many friends as you can. For all those who are watching from outside of India, Life's Amazing Secrets is now on Amazon.com, and the Kindle version is also on Amazon.com. Do pick it up. We're still looking at if Penguin USA and Penguin UK can publish and print the book there, so that it could be easily available for all of you who are outside of India. But once again, thank you all for joining. Shashi Kumar, Shweta, Paul, Abir, Rishabh, Samir Khan, thank you so much for all of you for joining. Kamil, thank you very much for being with us. Ashima, very grateful that you've taken your time. I'm Satish, all the way from London. Thank you, Sheshadri, very grateful. You all have a great evening ahead if you're in India, whichever part of the world you are in. Have a great evening, morning, afternoon, whatever it means for you, and a great weekend ahead. Hope to see you all the next week with another aspect of life's amazing secrets. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.